is my new mount for the Millett scope. It's an UsingAR-Stoner. It is the actual name brand of mount. Comes with your Allen keys. Allen keys? Who the hell's Allen keys? I don't know. But I hear he's a real asshole. Apologies to anyone named Allen Keys out there. I mean, no disrespect, nothing personal. Alright, we'll go ahead and remove Millett. These are just the rings that came with the scope. I've got my hardware out of there, and I'm a little anal retentive on certain things. I like to, once hardware has been installed, I like to make sure that I keep the same piece of hardware, the same screw, bolt, whatever, in the same hole that it was in. A lot of people would think that that's just absolutely crazy. I prefer to do it that way. That way, if you have any imperfections on the threads of one of your screws, it has already gouged up the threads in the hole, and it's all mated together, and it worked once, and it'll probably work again. But I don't want to go marring up all the holes or other holes by putting that same piece of hardware in there. Granted, you don't want to put any hardware in that is messed up, but each piece can be slightly different. So if you're taking them in and out and all that stuff, it's just a good idea, especially whenever you're dealing with steel into aluminum or any of your non-ferrous metals where you've got a real soft parent metal there. It's a good idea just to keep the proper ones with it. And see what I'm doing here. Go ahead, thread your hardware back in there. Just snug it. Doesn't have to be real tight. That way you don't lose anything, and you have, like what I was saying, the right screw in the right hole. One of the big reasons why it's good to run a cantilever style mount like this is, as you can see right here, I have not removed these scope rings yet. Sorry, the Oculus Maximus. If any of you haven't seen that video, watch it, you'll know what I mean. Right here, I've got this scope ring. It is on the actual upper receiver. In order to get a proper eye relief and everything, I had to move the scope pretty far forward. Well, that puts this scope ring mounted on the forearm, on the rail on it. Now, this is a Samson rail, or forearm. It's about the best you can get. It's free floating, it's solid as a rock, but it's still a separate piece than the upper. Now, that's why a lot of the guys are, like your LWRC, Lewis, LMT, there's a few of them that are doing a monolithic upper. That means that this rail and your upper receiver is all one piece. You do not have a joint here. The problem there is you can end up torquing your scope. You can get induced parallax, so to speak. It's just not healthy. It's not good for it. It will work, but you are much better off with a cantilever style mount, to where you can mount this and have everything attached to the receiver, or you have it all attached to your rail. It just depends on, as long as it's attached to the one piece. You wouldn't want to run it like this. Even though this is all one piece, which would help, you still are better off to run it on either just the upper or just your forearm. There's differing opinions as far as on these scope rings if you run a vertical split or a horizontal split. So they just say that this is a good bit stronger. You can Google it. There's a lot of argument about it. Has something to do with the way that clamps this way versus this way. The way I look at it, they're all fairly strong. It's all going to do what I need it to do for the most part. I guarantee that any setup that I put on this gun is probably capable of holding better groups and shooting better, or being shot better, kind of like what this Stag 3G. This thing is way beyond me as far as my ability, but at least I won't have that as an excuse now. Now what we'll do, this will go on somewhere around in here. This is a very nice feature of this mount here. It has got a good bit of hardware that attaches it. You've got 4 on where each ring is, and then you've got your 2 larger ones to actually hold it onto the rail. That must be where they talk about the majority of the extra strength coming here, because you have all this hardware clamping it onto the rail. As you can see, I've flipped the gun around here. Since all of our hardware is on this side, it'll just be a little easier to work with. And we're going to go somewhere around in there. I have all my hardware laid out where it should go. And now what we'll do to begin with is we'll go ahead, put our scope in there, and I'm going to snug up just a little bit these 4. I'm going to make sure that you do not strip these out. Again, if you ever start, especially in the smaller stuff, if you ever start something threading and it seems to bind right off the bat, just take it and spin it backwards a few turns. You'll feel that first thread skipping where it would like to bite. And once you've spun it backwards a couple of times, a lot of times that'll help seat it in, and then you can just ease it on in there. Little trick that really does help. That's used a lot in aviation with some of the magnesium parts and stuff like that. Of course, anyone that's turned wrenches for very long, they know that trick, quote unquote. All right, now it's loose on there, but it is attached. Cannot come loose, or can't come off there. So now what we'll do, throw it on there. Now keep in mind, if you put your larger hardware in, you will not be able to slide your mount forward or aft on the rail. So that's something that you just got to keep in mind. Now what I'll do is, with my length of pull about where I want it, I'll see if I've got a good eye relief. That seems just fine. So that's going to be good enough to at least get our... And now that I've got those snugged up decently, now I'll make sure that we've got everything lined up. I'm just doing this by eyeball. No tricks or anything like that. Sometimes you can put a level up here on top, and I'll check that. I don't have a level out here in front of me right now, but I'll check that with a level here in just a little bit. Good to me. Now I've put a level on here. This is nothing special. It's not gun stuff or anything. It's just a level that a lot of people have in their junk drawer or whatever. This scope happens to have a flat spot on top of its cap for the turret cap there. And if you do use a level, you're not used to using them, you want to shake them a little bit make sure that bubble is in a good spot. See, that's showing me that I'm a little off. Now, of course, your level is all going to also be dependent, there we go, on how level the rest of your rifle is set up. So we'll level this up first. Get us to a level spot. And if you cannot get your rifle completely level, just remember where that bubble sat when it was level and use that as your new 0 point. Alright. I'm not sure how well you can see that bubble. Let me see if I can move you over here. May not be able to see. Okay, you can see the bubble all the way up here. And so what we're going to do now is rotate the scope until that bubble moves right into the middle. Alright. Now that bubble's in the middle. I'll zoom you out here and let you see how I'm checking. And for the purposes we're doing here, it's okay to check on your rail. I mean, check on your forearm. Alright, now, that's showing that the rifle's tilted just a little bit to the left. So, rather than readjust the rifle, I'm going to make this match what that bubble was doing down on the rail. I'll offset that bubble just a hair. Check them against each other. Visually check it. All seems good. Tighten it up. Something I suggest, I've been for years dealing with non-ferrous materials and stuff, threading into it and everything, and I'm about got a calibrated hand for the most part. I know how tight I'm tightening stuff. I can feel it. It just comes with experience. If you do not have that experience, there's no bravado or pride that should enter into it. If you honestly know you do not have experience with that, rather than strip out anywhere from 60 for some of the Nikons all the way up to $300 mount, or whatever the piece of hardware is you're dealing with, get a torque wrench. For mounting scopes, they actually, Wheeler and a few other companies, they actually offer a little screwdriver that will break over. It's a torque wrench, and it's specifically for mounting optics. Invest a little bit of money that those cost in it. Get it. That way, I mean, you're always going to be able to reuse it. And I mean, you won't regret it. But you will regret it if you waste the money you spent on an expensive mount. Or even if it was a cheap mount, you still waste the shipping cost or the trip to the store to get it. So, use the right equipment. Now, something else, you'll notice that I have not used Loctite on this. I do recommend using Loctite on your hardware, especially for your optics. I'm not 100% sure that this is exactly how I want this, and I'm not sure I'm going to keep this optic. So for right now, I'm going to go with no Loctite and just snug it well. Snug it down well and go from there. Thanks for watching.